Hey Techno Studs, in this video we're going to configure two other switches, switch 2 and 3 of headquarters. So we're going to configure HQ-S2 and S3. So to do this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up the configuration file that we already worked with. So that is the HQ-S1. And I've created the font. I adjusted the font so that way it's a little bit easier to see on here. And so what we're going to do is we're going to take this now and we're going to change it for S2 and configure S2. So what first of all, the first step that I'll do is do a save as and save it as S2. So we save a copy of S2. And then what I'll do is I'm going to just go through here line by line and check all of them to see what else needs to be changed. And so here we've got the host name, so I'm going to do S2 on there for the host name. The set clock here, we want to set the clock just like we did before, but then once it's set, we'll sync it up with the master clock, which is going to be of S1. So S2 will be synced up with S1. So we'll still set the clock so that way it's fairly close, but then we should see the times be right on after a period of time. So to do that, we will type in NTP and we will NTP server and then the IP address that we want to set it to. So that will be 10.1.0.11. So that's of switch 1. And we'll just have everything on our network synced to that core switch. So now we have that set for the NTP server. All right, I'll scroll further in here and see what else needs to be changed. I did make a couple changes to our template here between the last time and this time. And that's one of the nice things about keeping a record of this all the time, is that it constantly is going to be getting better and better. Your template for rolling out new switches will become more accurate as time goes by. So that's one of the reasons why I keep quite a bit of notes of what's happening on each of these devices. So I scroll through here, I don't see anything else. Some of these, is going to be specific to the switch, like the passwords are going to be specific to the switch, but I'll enter those in at the last minute. We do have the management network interface here, so we're going to change that to 12. Same thing with the IP version 6 address. The gateway does not change. And then we get into the interfaces. The interfaces, we do have a couple changes. Number one, this is a 2960, which has a little bit different labeling for their interfaces. So we need to delete this / at the beginning of it. The next thing is that we want to change the range from 1 through 42 to, if you recall the way we designed this, we're going to have 47 and 48 being the links. So we want everything up to 46 to be configured right here. We're going to call these access ports. And we're going to leave these on. So rather than shutting them down, we're going to leave these on. Sometimes you'll want to shut these down for security purposes, but for this purpose, we're going to leave these access ports on. And we'll say access ports to machines or to end devices. How about machine to end devices? All right, then we have, we're going to go back and configure FA1034, and instead of calling this testing port, we'll call this demo laptop. We don't need the no shutdown command because this interface won't be shut down. So I could do 1 through 33, and then this port right here, and then 34 or 35 through 46 separately in all separate statements here. But this just makes it go a little bit faster, a few less lines by configuring this whole range right here and then configuring this one a little differently. All right, and then in interface FA10, we're gonna say 47 7, and that's going to go to S1. And then we will have 48. And that is going to go to, well, actually, what it's going to be is the same as this 48. So we'll just delete all of this right here. And that's going to be saved for later, and it's going to be shut down. I do need to delete all of this one slash on here to remove all of those. And save the profile. One thing that I'll want to do at the end here is grab a copy. I didn't do this last time, so I need to go back and I need to grab a copy of running config. So I'll just make a note of that I want to do that this time. And so the reason for that is so that way I always have a current copy of what's running on the device. So, and then I'll do that after I test it. So in case there's something I need to change during testing. All right, these little exclamation points too just means that lines that are ignored by Cisco iOS. So those are not going to enter into any commands here. So I'm going to save this out, and then I'm going to set up, I'll set this all up for us to start putting these commands now into the router, or excuse me, into switch 2. Just as I configured switch 1, I have switch 2 set up very similarly, where I have the console section here, the console connection up, so I can do the configuration. On the right side here, I have the notepad, so I can copy and paste my commands into this switch, and then I have my passwords readily accessible and available for this, so I can put those into this as well. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start copying and pasting over here, although I've already started. So I've already reset the switch. I've gone through the process of making sure there's no configurations on this right now. Then I went through the process of enabling IP version 6. So I've got that all set up now. And I'm on this step where I can start going through and naming this. So the first thing that I'm going to do is set the clock on here. So I'm going to copy this information. I'm going to paste it in here. The clock right now says 12:23. So by the time I hit enter, it might be 12:24. So I'm going to hit that in there. I can hit the question mark just to make sure I'm getting it right. So 12:24:00, and then hit the question mark. It's asking for day. So this is 06. Well, I guess I could just do 6, and then question mark. The month is June, and then it's asking for the year, so 2022, and then I can hit enter, and now that's set on there. The additional thing that I wanted to set on here was the NTP server, so that's a little different there. I'm going to set the host name here, then I'm going to do the banner, and I've got my TKS here as the banner right there. And then do the no logging. So what I'm just going to do is grab this whole section right here, the rest of this, and copy this. And as long as I'm in the right mode when I start, I should be able to paste this in, and it should take all of that information. So I don't see any error messages. Can go on to the next one, and I'll need to copy the enable secret in here. So I'll do these 2 steps here. And the enable secret, so the enable secret will be for H2 will be right here. I'll copy this password and I'll paste it into here, hit enter, and there's that. I'll do the same thing for the line console. So I'm going to copy this, Control C, I'm going to paste, space, and then this is the console password for switch 2. So I'll copy that password, paste it in here, hit enter, and then log in and exit. So copy that and paste that in here. Next set, I'll do the domain and set it up for SSH2 and generate the RSA. So I'll copy all of this and paste it in here. And it's prompting me for the how many bits. I'm going to do 1024. There, it's creating that. And then I can do everything up until this password again. So I'll copy this, paste it in here, space, and then I'll take my password here, copy the password, paste that in there, hit enter. And then the management interface. So I can do the management interface right here. I'll copy all of this. Paste that all in there. The whole time I'm looking for to make sure that there's no errors that it pops up with, because I might need to do some troubleshooting with it. So next are the interfaces. I'm just going to grab all of this interface information and copy it, paste it in here. And there we have it. So I'll exit one more time, and I'm going to copy, run, start. Want to verify it? Okay, so now what we can do is we can test this out to see if we can SSH into this box, because it should be set all up to SSH into this address 10.1.0.12. So I'm going to create a new session, and within this session I'm going to what I'll actually do is load up this HQ-S1, because it's got all of the settings that I need to connect to this S2, except for it's got the wrong IP address. So what I can do is I can load this up, I can change the IP address to .12, and I can change the session to, or the switch to S2. I can save it, and now I have this saved in there. So I'm now going to open this connection up and see if it makes a good connection here. It is once again asking, it's a self-signed certificate, so it's warning me about the certificate. I can connect once or accept. I'm going to accept in this case right here. It's asking for the password. I can copy my password here, and then I'll paste it into here. And there we have it. Now we're logged in. So you can see that the power in setting up all these commands ahead of time made configuring switch 2 go really fast. So as long as you got it honed in, then now switch 3 is going to be even faster. So I'm going to go through the same process to configure switch 3. I'm going to save any changes that I've made to this configuration right here. So I'll save this file right here. Then I'll save as, and I'm going to save it as switch 3 and click on save. I'll go through and change anything that needs to be changed. So as I'm scrolling through here, the NTP server is going to stay the same. The scroll through here, the IP address will be 13, and I'll change that for both IP version 4 and IP version 6. The switch ports are all pretty much going to be configured the same, except for we are going to configure the demo Pi on a different connection, and I forget which connection that is, so I'll have to look back at my settings here. And I said the demo Pi is going to be on port 21, I imagine. There's the demo Pi, port 21. So I want to change this now to port 21. I'm going to, instead of call it demo laptop, I'm going to call it demo Pi. And then I'm going to, let's see what we have here. That's all the same. So everything else is pretty much the same. So I'm going to save this out now. And the next thing to do would be to connect my demo laptop to switch 3 and then go through the same process to save the configurations to switch 3. So the last thing that I'm going to do here, I'm going to configure this, and then what we'll do is the last thing is we'll make sure we have connectivity to all of the devices. So I'm going to configure this, and I'm going to also plug in all of the ports. So I'm going to plug in port 47 to switch 1 on both the switch 2 and switch 3, and we'll see if we got connectivity through this thing. All right, all of the commands now are in switch 3. So it's time to test this out. Time to see if what we have configured is working. Now recall that my demo laptop is actually plugged into switch 2, and switch 2 is plugged into switch 1, and switch 1 is plugged into switch 3. So we have them all interconnected, but the demo laptop's not connected directly into switch 3. So there's quite a few things, quite a few variables involved here that could go wrong. Let's see how close we got. I'm going to bring up a command prompt here, and I'm going to ping our switch 3, which is 10.1.0.13, and see what comes up with this. So if everything works out correctly, those should ping from one device all the way over to the other. And we see that the first request timed out. And that's because it's got to do the ARP request and figure out where it's going and all of that. So it times out initially, but then we are successful. So we have successfully set this up where we have now at least basic connectivity to that switch, and we can ping that interface. All right, now let's try to bring up a new session and see if we can remote into it. Similar to before, I'm just going to load up HQ-S2 settings into here, switch it to 13, call it by a different name, which will be HQ-S3, and save it. And now let's see if we can make a connection into this device right here, into this switch 3. So I'm going to click on Open. It's going to give me that certificate warning, and I'm going to hit accept. It's going to ask for a password, so I'll copy this password here and paste it into here. And there we have it. We're in. So we have connectivity. So out of all of those variables, we got them all right. We dialed it in. And part of the way that we did that was we had these config files that we were copying and pasting from. So once we got one of them right, then it was much easier and faster to do the other. Now, remember the last thing that I said that we need to do is make sure we grab this configuration. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to change settings. We're going to go to logging. I'm going to go to the printable output, and we'll browse to make sure it's in the right location. It is. We're going to call this HQ-S3, and then maybe we'll put a underscore to separate the date out from the rest of it. And as I mentioned before, I always like to put the year first, and then the month, and then the day, because then we can sort by the date and see what's the most current, what's the least current from all of these different configs. And then I'm going to just call this config maybe. We'll call it our config. And then I'm going to click on save. We'll apply it, show, run, and now it's capturing all of this data and it's putting it in that file. We need to do this to every device, so I'll go ahead and stop this. I'm going to change settings, logging, and none, apply, and then I'm going to go in and create a new session. This is going to be for S2. I'll load it. Click on open. Notice I can have multiple windows opened at the same time. So I'm going to copy the password, paste it in there. And then same thing, I will capture this. So I'm going to change the settings, logging, printable, browse. I can click on that file I just created. And instead of S3, this is S2. I can see that it's S2 because of my window in here in the background. That's the host name. So I click on save. I can apply. I'm going to grab this. So show run, go through it. And I'll change settings, logging, turn it off, apply. Go into a new session, S1, load, open. And we are going to copy this, copy password, paste. All right, and then I will change the settings once again, logging, printable output. I'm just going to select this file right here and change it to S1. Apply. Show run. Going to go through that process. And then we will stop logging here. There you have it. Now I've got all the configuration files. I've got all these configured. We've tested it. So we've got end-to-end connectivity. So we are good to go. Things are working well.